Welcome to your astrological forecast for the week of Monday, January 17th through Sunday, January 23rd. This week, there's a lot going on. We have Mercury that had just turned retrograde on Friday, the 14th of this month, and so we are starting that whole process, which is, of course, disruptive and a little bit chaotic. It's not, things aren't happening linear like we might like them to be, and it's harder to be productive. But on the plus side, it's better, for being creative and gaining insight, looking at things a little bit differently, gaining perspective, revisiting things that we haven't fully integrated. So that's all happening with Mercury retrograde. We also have a full moon this week in Cancer. So that's definitely a potent full moon since the moon is in domicile in Cancer. That's definitely impacting for sure. And it's actually happening at a particular point that is very interesting and impacting, and I'll explain more about that in a moment here. We also have Uranus turning direct at 10 degrees Taurus, so that's kind of a big deal. Uranus is an outer planet, so outer planets they spend months, retrograde and then months direct. And Uranus turning direct, it means more activity on a global level, on a societal level, and more of a long-term, big picture level. There's more activity that's going to happen now that Uranus is turning direct, particularly in the realms of finances, resources, commodities, stocks, etc. There's a lot of disruption and chaos that's happening there from Uranus making these sudden huge changes, unpredictable changes in finance. So all that will kind of gear into action starting this week as well. We also have the nodes changing signs from Gemini and Sagittarius, where they have been for the last 2.5 years or so. It's turning, they always go retrograde, so they're switching into Taurus and Scorpio. So that's very interesting as well because that also points to more disruption, chaos, sudden changes in the realms of finance as well. So that's something that will be very interesting to see how that unfolds over the next 2 years. And then lastly, we have the sun entering Aquarius this week as well. So we are starting a new season, we like to say in astrology, new Aquarius season. So happy birthday, Aquarius is coming up here. But yeah, there's a lot going on. So let's just dive into it and kind of unpack what's going on here. So we start out on Monday, January 17th with this full moon. I can go to the exact chart for the full moon here. So it's at 27 degrees of Cancer. And the reason why that's sort of interesting is because, just to get a little bit sidetracked here for a second, America is going to have its Pluto return this year, and it will be exact 3 times this year, once in February, once in July, and then for a third and final time in December of this year. And so we're sort of approaching this Pluto return. And the reason why this full moon sort of has to do with that is because the full moon opposes America's Pluto placement to the degree. America has its Pluto at 27 degrees of Capricorn, and you can see here Pluto is currently at 26 degrees Capricorn, so it's pretty close. So I think this could kind of incite some rumblings of some chaos that is yet to unfold later in this year. I hate to be negative or say that bad things will happen, but I do see this as some immense change that's right around the corner, particularly for the United States. And so that is just something to look out for, and I just thought it was interesting that this full moon makes this exact opposition there, makes that connection to that exact point or that degree. But otherwise, generally speaking, this is a full moon at the end of Cancer, and so this is, um, extra potent for a full moon. So there's more theatrics going on. Things are dramatic at times of full moons. Things are kind of culminating, and there's more activity. That's something that we all kind of experience, firsthand, anecdotally. And this is sort of especially chaotic combined with the Mercury retrograde. I think, I talked about in my last forecast that we can use both of these things happening at the same time to gain awareness and perspective. Both of these, both the Mercury retrograde and the full moon in Cancer are both asking us to kind of reflect and integrate and gain that sort of intuition or, that insight to kind of look at things a different way and to gain clarity. The problem though is that, so many people go into these things not really knowing what's happening, not expecting this change, and I think that's where the chaos kind of unfolds. So I do see this as being a sort of disruptive and chaotic Monday. I'm not gonna lie. Just because the moon is in Cancer, everyone's feelings are so vibrant and strong, which is good. It's good that we know where we stand and we know how we feel, but at the same time, it can create chaos just because people are extra emotional, maybe extra outspoken, and the communication is a little bit dysfunctional since so many of us haven't adjusted to Mercury, which has just gone retrograde, and changing the pace of things, changing the communication of things. And Mercury just went retrograde, which means that it's pretty much stationary. It's not moving a lot, so that intensifies the thinking and the communication as well. So this is kind of an intense day. There's a lot going on. It's a little bit chaotic and disruptive. And if you have really strict plans, things probably won't go as planned, just because the whole rhythm of everything is kind of getting shaken up a little bit on Monday here. And then lastly, late on Monday, we do have Moon entering Leo, and um, it will still be sort of opposing the Sun and Capricorn, and Sun and Pluto, with that sort of out of sign opposition. So, um, I mean, we'll still be coming off that full moon aspect. The moon will still be very full in the sky, for instance, and so Leo too is a kind of dramatic, theatrical sign, very outgoing, outspoken. Leo's nice. I think having a moon still pretty full in Leo is kind of nice for like a party energy, but considering that Mercury's retrograde, there's still that potential for that dysfunctionality and a little bit of like chaos there for sure, even once the moon enters Leo. Going to Tuesday, January 18th. Mercury retrograde at 8 degrees Aquarius makes a sextile to Chiron at 8 degrees Aries. So this might mean that we're reflecting on past traumas or wounds that we have, kind of rethinking how we approach those things. This is a harmonious aspect and it's a minor aspect, so it's not a super strong, overpowering vibe, but it is something that's kind of incorporated into the day here on Tuesday. Just maybe making some positive conversations or thoughts look related to traumas or wounds. Also, Chiron is the wounded healer, so it could be that we're having conversations geared toward like helping other people with their wounds, so kind of like therapeutic conversations in a way. There's definitely that potential there. Also on Tuesday, we have Uranus turning direct at 10 degrees Taurus, and on the same day, we have the nodes switching signs to Taurus and Scorpio. So I just think that's so interesting because both of those things happening, it's funny they both happen on the same day because, like I said before, both Uranus turning direct in Taurus as well as the North Node going to Taurus and South Node going to Scorpio, all of that indicates increased potential for sudden dramatic change with our finances, the economy, commodities. So, what we value, what might be valued very high in the world, might dramatically change. So, things that were valued aren't anymore, and things that weren't valued are now. And that applies to a lot of areas. But, the North Node is in Taurus, so that's bringing more abundance or luck or fortune, more easiness involving more our personal finances, but the South Node is bringing more kind of trouble, confusion, difficulties involving debts, inheritance, taxes, shared resources. So, so I think this would especially be a good time to make sure that your money is in order and that your investments are sound, just because there's so much change happening here. And the South Node is entering Scorpio, so if you do have kind of out of control debts or um, I don't know, investments that aren't wise, then this could be especially problematic over the next 2 years. Um, and these changes are not all bad. There could be positive changes with economics as well. It's just kind of a mixed bag. There's so much to change and so much to adapt and adjust to that it could be challenging. It could be overwhelming at times. But I do believe all this is happening in order to get us to a better place. It's just kind of disruptive as we go through the process here of all that change. Okay, and then Moon continues through Leo. It's still pretty full, so things are vibing high. There's a lot of energy or electricity in the air. People are more outspoken with Moon and Leo still pretty full as well. And it is making that opposition to Mercury retrograde, so it's there's so much energy really right now, Monday and Tuesday, and it is dysfunctional, I would say. So I don't know. All I would say really is just kind of like step back and enjoy it. Just watch it as a show, and these things are temporary. Things will calm down quite a bit once the moon enters Virgo later this week, so it's all temporary here. On Wednesday, January 19th, the sun enters Aquarius kind of later in the day, and moon is still in Leo. Um, so this is nice. So it just means we're entering the middle third of winter, I guess you could say, at least in the northern hemisphere. And whenever we go into an air sign, it's hard for me to even know how to tackle it because with all the air signs, um, there's a sort of disconnect from itself. There's almost like a contradiction, and you can see this in the glyphs how each air sign has two lines involved in it. So there's this element of duality with all the air signs. People often describe Aquarius as being revolutionary and rebellious, and it is those things, but it's also conservative, and it is ruled by Saturn historically or traditionally. So as we enter this time, it's kind of a mixed bag. We're increasingly focused on the groups we affiliate to in our community, but we're also focused on our self-expression and our uniqueness at the same time. How does our uniqueness fit in with the group, or does it fit in with the group? What group do we fit in with? If we're unique from everyone else, how do we compromise with everyone else, or how do we, if how do we fit into the larger puzzle? How does our unique puzzle piece fit into the larger picture here? Ultimately, one of the major lessons of Aquarius is to learn that by developing and even flaunting your eccentricities, then that in a way that's conducive with the group, it actually benefits the group and society the most when we all bring our unique gifts to the table and flaunt those rather than hide those. So a lot of these themes will just generally come up as the sun enters Aquarius here. The focus is more very far future. In Capricorn, we become more focused on our goals and what we want to accomplish. And Aquarius, it's a little bit similar, but more far reaching. So more thinking, what do we really want for the far future? What kind of world do we want to live in? It gets very holistic and philosophical, I guess you could say. And we are in this last, third of the zodiac here. Winter's the last season for the northern hemisphere. So this is mostly about manifestation. We're not so much actively manifesting things at this time. We're more kind of dreaming and thinking and contemplating and, manifesting more on the inner level, more on a non-physical level. Something that will eventually come up in spring once the sun enters Aries. So those are the general themes that we're exploring as we get into Aquarius here. But that does start on Wednesday. Going forward to Thursday, January 20th, moon enters Virgo, and I do like this, I think. I mean, it kind of mellows things out a little bit, and it starts to form some very loose, but it still starts to form some loose grand trines with Uranus and Venus in Taurus and Capricorn, respectively. So I think that's nice just because the full moon in Cancer and then the full moon being still pretty full in Leo earlier this week was so dramatic and theatrical, and especially with Mercury retrograde, as I described in this forecast, it does have the potential to be very chaotic and disruptive. So I think it's a little bit nicer once the moon enters Virgo and it kind of cools down a little bit, and it starts to make some of those trines so we can be a little bit more methodical and maybe a little bit more organized, more practical for the next couple of days as the moon transits over Virgo. And it will, as it approaches the end of Virgo and enters Libra in a couple of days, it will start to trine the sun. So we're starting to get into a little bit more of a harmonious dynamic here later in the week. Mercury is still retrograde, so that is, definitely challenging for some of us. But at the same time, all other things considered, things are mellowing out a tiny bit, I would say, hesitatingly. Going to Friday, January 21st. Uh, Now Moon is about halfway through Virgo, so it does, make those trines with Uranus and Venus. So I think this could be really grounding and bring a little bit of harmony to these changes that are unfolding with our finances and with the structure of society, with our hierarchies. Like I described earlier, there's so much change happening, a sudden disruption there. But the Moon in Virgo making these trines brings a little bit of balance and harmony there. Um, let's see. Yeah, that's pretty much what I would say. But just generally speaking, with the Moon in Virgo, we're being more methodical, more practical, more organized, and combining that energy with the Sun recently in Aquarius. Aquarius and Virgo do share the themes of like helping other people or serving other people in some way. So generally, that could be where the focus is. Maybe focusing on helping other people. Um, the danger there is just making sure that the people we're helping want that help, because both Virgo and Aquarius have challenging themes involving, you know, um, like no good deed going unpunished type of thing. Trying to help but becoming involved in sticky situations, etc. So there can be that dynamic, but on the positive side, this would be a good dynamic for seeking information or enlightenment, and using knowledge to help other people, basically. Going forward to Saturday, January 22nd, Moon enters Libra. Now this gets really a lot more harmonious. Yes, Mercury still retrograde. That is dysfunctional. But like I said, it's also a good time for being creative, intuitive, kind of going within and gaining that clarity. But I think it's all kind of grounded though as the moon enters Libra, because the moon will make that trine with the sun. So this is a waning gibbous moon, and the moon will also trine Mercury later today on Saturday as well. So that's a lot nicer. It was so dysfunctional at the beginning of this week, but I do think things get a little bit more calm and peaceful as we enter the weekend, which is really nice. So chaotic week, but a little bit more restful weekend. And Libra is such a peaceful sign anyway, so and the moon is does generally very well in Libra. We feel emotionally kind of detached, maybe, but also kind of secure. And we kind of think before we act when moon is in Libra. So all of that kind of points to a relatively calm and peaceful beginning of the weekend here. Oh, one thing I wanted to add as well. By this time, there's a lot of Earth and air energy. Mars is just wrapping up its time in Sagittarius, which is fire, and then there is Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces, which is water. But other than that, all these other planets are kind of clustered in Aquarius and Capricorn, and then you've got Uranus and Taurus. So there's a lot of Earth and air energy, which means that we're more kind of detached, we're less emotional, and that's interesting too. That the beginning of this week was so emotionally kind of vibrant and potentially out of control. But this weekend becomes much more cool, calm, and detached a little bit. The Earth and air are the less emotional elements. They're more, logical, I guess you could say. Earth is very grounded and practical. Air is light, but it's still kind of detached and, intellectual, I guess you could say. So these are kind of the more cool, detached elements that we're dealing with as we get into the weekend here. And then lastly, on Sunday, January 23rd, Moon continues to transit through Libra, and we actually have the Sun conjoin and pass over Mercury retrograde. So Sun is, of course, traveling direct as it always does. Mercury's going backward, and so they sort of pass each other briefly. So that actually marks the halfway point of Mercury retrograde, believe it or not. It feels like it has been so brief, like Mercury just went retrograde, but this is sort of the halfway point. So there could be the themes of Mercury retrograde could be ramped up on Sunday. So that does mean extra dysfunction if we try to be productive in a very linear outward way. But this is extra productive if we allow ourselves to kind of rest. And this is really kind of perfect for a Sunday as well, that if we do have some time where we can kind of sit and reflect or engage in activities which kind of slow down our mind, that would be ideal for Mercury retrograde. That's really what it's asking us to do, especially when it conjoins the sun like this. This just all kind of comes to the forefront, and that really defines the day on Sunday. So, and I think especially with Moon and Libra, it's really beautiful making this trine to the Sun and Mercury and Aquarius still. Like I said, Libra is such a thoughtful sign. It likes to kind of mull things over and digest things, and then combining that with Mercury retrograde passing the Sun, um, you know, this will be extra chaotic and slow if you are trying to work in a very linear outward way, but extra rewarding if you can allow yourself to rest at this time, if you have that privilege or opportunity. So that's what I have for this week. Next week, there is a lot happening. Mars is entering Capricorn. Mercury is also entering Capricorn from the other side, going retrograde backward into Capricorn. And then we finally have Venus turning direct at 11 degrees Capricorn. So those three inner planets are all kind of having some activity in Capricorn. I'll talk about what all that means next week. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.